Hi, I'd like to read you a brief excerpt from my novella, Feeding the Squirrels, which is published in a variety of electronic formats by Synergy Books. For more information, check out my website, roypickering.net. This excerpt is rated R, so you may not want to listen to it at work or around little kids. Chapter 1, Michelle. I was reaching for a napkin when our eyes first met. Some Wall Street type, whose lighter side was showcased by the cartoon characters on his suspenders, was plying her with drinks which had sexually explicit names, hoping to put ideas as well as alcohol into her head. Being no fool, she accepted the drinks and scanned the bar while feigning interest in his stock portfolio. If 1/3 of the shit he was spouting was accurate, the guy could probably afford a woman like her, at least for a few weeks. But it was plain to see, at least to me, that she was in search of less physical pleasures. She broke eye contact within a few seconds, but conveyed in that time all I needed to know. I turned back to my White Russian. The night was young, and I am nothing if not a patient man. The guy obviously didn't want to risk letting her out of his sights, but his bladder was weaker than his will. So an hour down the road, he took a gamble. The moment his ass was off the stool, the woman he hoped to be going home with set her sights on me, her gaze now locked and loaded. I gave no indication that I noticed. In fact, I had disregarded most of the glances cast my way throughout the evening, acted as if transfixed by the mixture of Kahlua, vodka, milk, and a splash of Coke in my glass. She struck me as someone used to getting what she wanted, so I knew my best bet lay in putting the matter in doubt. When I finally did acknowledge her, the hardness of her stare was as blatant as a punch to the face. She wordlessly demanded to know if I was qualified to handle such a precious commodity. I headed over to answer the question posed by her midnight eyes. As I approached, she stood up, meaning that she was ready to leave. With me if I said the right thing, alone if I said anything else. She was taller than expected, proportioned like a fashion model who wasn't hooked on heroin just yet, but tired and money is no object style. Such women inevitably tend to be preoccupied with themselves, which I suppose is excusable, since everyone else is preoccupied with them as well. Unfortunately, such a personality trait usually forebodes a lousy lay. But from the first word she spoke, I knew I had pressed the wrong key in my stereotype. Give me one good reason why I shouldn't let that guy buy me half of Saks. Saks doesn't sell vibrators. Do you? I have a trunk load at home, but you won't be needing them. Good. In the midnight hours of a Manhattan night, a cab can go from the top of the city to the bottom, or vice versa, without catching a single red light. The absence of those sudden stops and starts can make for one hell of a blowjob if you find the right mouth to accommodate you. I had no complaints. In a more conventional lovemaking locale, as we sprawled out on my bed during rest periods, I learned that Michelle had married and widowed well. She claimed not to have had decent sex in over 4 years, the last time being with the stripper from a bachelorette party. Michelle had been a good girl for a long time. I let her be bad again, and again, and again. I told Michelle I was a writer, but that is what I fancied myself, and impressive lies were unnecessary by this point. Not having to work for a living allows me the opportunity to attempt whatever comes to mind. Writing the great American novel seemed like a good idea. Starting it has not been a problem. I have written 34 first chapters, at which point I always run out of steam. I didn't tell Michelle this. I just bent her over my writing desk. Lack of steam was not an issue. Over breakfast, I make one hell of an after-fuck meal. Michelle was kind enough to invite me to her wedding, which was to take place in 3 weeks. Much older millionaire number 2. She had kept her megawatt engagement ring in her purse. I didn't tell her that she needn't have bothered. The ring could have been protruding from her forehead for all I cared. Big dogs and small airplanes make me nervous, but diamonds cause me little concern. On too many occasions, they had failed to act as chastity belt. I suppose I could have bragged that, unlike the stripper, I did not have advance notification of Michelle's upcoming nuptials. But I'm not one to complain. Knowing that I was having my way with someone who was about to become another man's wife would have sprinkled additional spice in what had been a red-hot night. I would have put in some extra effort to guarantee that the end of her single days be as memorable as possible. Marriage is a pretty tough gig, from what I hear, so best to enter such a state on the highest possible note. There you go.